Alright. Where are we? Where are we? Just get this out there. Share it. Lahza. See some people just already on. Alright, wa alaikum assalam. Look at that. People. Alright. So I'm talking about people. That's what I'm talking about. Oh, look, I can. I'm just sharing this from my other page, and I'm with you guys. Just un momento, por favor. So almost done. Oh, alaikum assalam. Ahlan wa sahlan bil qawm. Ahlan wa sahlan. Right, let's get this show on the road, people. Let's get this show on the road. Alaikum assalam. Shukran for tuning in. Those of you, just look at that, all the way from Karachi, Pakistan. Going out there. Right, people, as you're tuning in, click the share feed, get this live feed out there, share it amongst people, share the goodness on this auspicious occasion of Halloween, the kufr and the fasad. Right, so let's get started. Inna alhamdulillah wa kafah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulih al-Mustafa, wa ala ibadi alladhina irtada. ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد فالسلام الله على قوم أهل فيسبوك. Right, bienvenidos a todos. Muhammad Asif saying all the way from Brazil. Alright, muy bien. That's what we're talking about. Right, so people, shukran, khush amadid, Huan Ying Layth, and bot swagat ho. So people, where we is live. Another interesting week as always. Haram, you know, nothing else seems to quite cut it these days. Haram is like the minimum benchmark we go for. Right, that's like that's what we aim for. Well, people, how has this week been? Ya salam. Brazil speaks Portuguese. Claro que sí, of course. But they understand. They understand, entienden español. They understand Spanish. Trick or treat tonight. So, what are these questions, people? What are these questions? Please define what comes under libasul taqwa. That's a good question to start with, isn't it? What comes under libasul taqwa? The clothing of God consciousness or piety. Imam Hassan, nothing but love right back at you. We've got Sheikh Suleiman Van Al on online with us in the house, people, in the online house. You see, we could call this actually one online. Look at the interesting thing that despite people being from all different parts of the world, yet technically, shar'an, from an Islamic perspective, this is one majlis, you see. So we would call this, as a lot of the fuqaha in the past said, they said, al-majlis yajma' al-mutafarriqat. So you get this principle, I'm giving you guys an axiom. Look at the words, people. Axiom. A qanun. This is an Islamic principle upon which they built Islamic rulings and law. And that is al-majlis yajma' al-mutafarriqat. That a majlis can despite it being, it's something that brings together disparate. It's difficult actually how to translate it, but they made it as an axiom. Mutafarriqat means, like, I suppose, diversities or differences, or but what they meant when they said it, you see, what they meant when they said al-majlis yajma' al-mutafarriqat was that you could have different things in terms of people, in terms of spaces as well, and yet it could be classed as one majlis to do transactions in. And the classical example was if a person was on one mountain communicating with a person on another mountain that may have technically fallen under a different kingdom even, yet their interaction is still one majlis. It's one context which affords validity. Allah! What a technical discussion to begin with. Ya salam. See, this is... so based on that, you could... So we are all technically in one majlis right here, people. So transactions could take place. Marriages could take place. I'm not saying marriages are taking place here, but they could within a majlis. And this is how people do that online, by the way. When they do Skype kind of nikahs, or Skype buying and selling, or I suppose buying and selling, you just click on a button and it's done. Anyway, people, anyway. I always wondered how it would feel to... Who? Man! Yaar, sharminda karte ho yaar. What's with the Paki timing, Mufti? It's in my DNA. Ka kare baba. We're kind of majboor. We're forced. Speaking of DNA, there's an interesting discussion I was looking at by Steven Pinker. Look at these people have combined my drinks. Not only does the majlis yajma' bayn al-mutafarriqat, but my majlis is yajma' bayn al-har wal-barid, between hot and cold. Look at that. I've got a cup. This is what I'm talking. This is the ultimate, people. I'm taking you guys to the limits. To the limits. This is a famous. This is hot. I thought, let's bring some green tea and mix it up. What say you, people? What say you? I just had, you know, some. Desi food does kill it. You can't compare with that. So I just had that. The roti made the tharid style, you know, the churi banake. So now just to help with that. But let's take some of these questions with the har wal qar. And there's a famous saying of Sayyidina Ali radiallahu an, when he was during Uthman's rulership, he was asked once, some people who'd caused they were in trouble about something, and they were they were going to get dispensed some punishment, and so what happened was Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu an said he said to Sayyidina Ali, you handle the punishment. Like you give him that, like you sort that out. So Sayyidina Ali radiallahu an said, like, why should I have to do that? And he said, Walli haraha man tawalla qaraha. In other words, those who get to chill out because of this whole situation, let them deal with the problems as well. Why should I deal with the problems and they deal with the chill aspect? So yes, let's move on. So some insight there, a bit of history. I was saying about Steven Pinker, there was an interesting kind of lecture I was listening to his on human nature, and this whole thing about the blank slate fallacy, and how he was actually showing a lot of research which was quite, it was quite challenging to my normal discourse that I held, which is... what he was saying is that parental input in how they manage a child has almost zero to no, to very little, if anything, impact on the child's personality at a later age. That was really interesting, the research they were demonstrating through separated twins and things like identical twins and stuff like this, and how it's actually quite a myth that parents shape their children. And what his research was demonstrating is that yes, children do inherit traits from their parents, but that is more so due to their DNA and genes, as opposed to the kind of nurture effect. And what they do pick up from nurture is usually more to do with their actual greater environment, like their friends and areas and stuff like this, as opposed to their parents. So it was just interesting. And he gives examples of identical twins who are split from birth, but when they meet 40 years later, how they still have very similar, like they dress in a similar type of dress, they have, they both, he gives the example of wear rubber bands, both have certain OCD perspectives about flushing the toilets before they go to it and after, and it's just interesting how both, like he was trying to say, these are people who haven't shared any similar environment. But nevertheless, let's move on, people, let's move on. Khalid Murshid Rizvi Sahib. Wow, he changed the shirt. Kabhi kabhi. Sometimes. Right, what is imama and khilafa? And khilafah, are they considered as kufr? What is the prominent Shia belief? Whoa. Right, the prominent Shia belief. I've done a whole Ustada Tahira Ahlan wa Sahlan wa Alaykum As-Salam, all the way from Chicago. Canon EOS D600. MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Right, so, okay, now, I've done a whole detailed lecture before on the Shia kind of things, and that, look, the Shia are also a diverse spectrum of people. They're not one particular person per se. They have many groups and subgroups and further subgroups amongst them. The difference, no matter what people say, is actually a political difference. In essence, it began as a political difference. Obviously, people religionized it and emotionalized. Look at that, people. I'm just generating the vocab. Emotionalized the whole thing. They charged it up with all this emotional rhetoric as they went along. The main issue really with the Shia, apart from, I don't mean some have very weird wacko beliefs, but maybe many of them don't. The main difference has been abuse, verbal abuse of venerated figures within Islam. So to them, they feel it's okay to verbally abuse them. And some Shia have condemned that. I believe Sistani condemned it and other people condemned it. So provided there's no issues of abuse, then I feel people should work together as much as possible, and we should just really avoid these discussions of differences. There's no point, some people say, hey, why don't you come sit down with some Shia and discuss this whole Ali versus Muawiyah thing, or Ali versus Zubayr and Aisha thing, or why don't you sit with the Shia and discuss Hussein versus whatever, all of this. And I see no benefit in doing any of that, because it's just a topic that's going to cause further harm, because people are going to get just offended on both sides. So there is no kind of verbal solution to find. So it's better to just bypass all of these things, put them aside, and just meet together on normal, greater grounds. We don't need to talk about history. Look, we can disagree about, your stance on some companions. As long as you're not abusing people, then it's your way of looking at things. I don't agree with them, but it's your life. You do as you please. But when you start hurling abuse at people, obviously it's going to wind people up and cause offense to people. So that's the thing. You see, to me, some the companions are amazing people. The wives of the Prophet are the mothers of the believers, and we venerate and respect them all. And that's my stance. I have made detailed videos and highlighted that, look, Sayyidina Muawiyah radiallahu an was one of the greatest companions. He was the brother-in-law of the Prophet, and he was he was one of the people who used to write Revelation, and it's wrong to abuse people. It's wrong to abuse him. It's wrong to abuse people in general. That is my stance. There was this, somebody tagged me into an article. Right, okay. Somebody tagged me into an article by the Daily Mail. Now, alright people, those of you just tuning in, right, Sajida, okay, I've got your question, I'll come to that. Those of you just tuning in, if you click like, click share the live feed, get it out there people, let other people benefit. Let me tell you now, somebody kind of tagged me into some, this Daily Mail article about some guy who I don't know. He's from the UK and he's a teacher, and he's got 2 wives in the same house. How he manages that, I don't know. How they're not slicing each other's throats every day. He must have no rooms left for peace or to get away to in his house. Right, so, like sometimes you just need a getaway. He must be like, I go in this room, there's that wife, I go in that. That would just be like double the headache. Right, so he gets like, but anyway, somebody tagged me into this. Right, so, and although that's a crazy, I don't know how people pull things off like that, by the way. I mean, I don't mean from a moral or that kind of perspective. I mean just actually pull it off. Like, I'm surprised that they... But khair, he seems to have done this. So anyway, my point is that somebody tagged me on there, and I just said, look, I made a comment by saying, look, because it's a non-Muslim thing, we don't need to talk Islam, this is a non-Muslim thing, and I said, look, from an evolutionary perspective, the male species are always polygamous. Generally as a rule, and as long as the main thing is they're adults and they're consenting. Otherwise, this is not, because people were saying on the post, oh my god, how can he have 2 wives? He should be prosecuted by the police, he should have this and that, bigamy is illegal. So I mentioned that his usage of the term wife is a colloquial usage. It's not, he doesn't mean in a legal sense, he simply means a religious ceremony has been undertaken. And that's not the same as a legal capacity. And I just said, look, I'm not advocating for or against. I'm just saying this is evolutionary nature of the male species. And I think if we think humans will outgrow this evolutionary kind of instinct that we have, then I don't think it would be done within decades, let alone centuries, because humans have evolved as creatures over, potentially over millions of years. So, and this is amongst all mammals in general. So anyway, I highlighted this. So some people got offended, and I saw and I saw some of the guys like all liking my thing, going, yeah, Mufti. But anyway, some people got a bit wound up, and this one non-Muslim guy got on there and he made some kind of a dumb comment by saying, what do you mean natural? And many things are natural in society, but society doesn't accept them. Like stealing is natural. It has evolutionary advantages to it. So, and he said bullying is natural. But now, I don't want to get into an argument online. So I simply responded with one comment. I said, look, stealing, unless you mean natural, unless you mean metaphorically, cannot be natural. Okay, stealing cannot be natural because stealing is built upon the premise, upon the understanding of possession and ownership, which is a human social construct. Human beings have actually created this as a discourse. It's just a story. Outside the human mind, possession and ownership do not exist. This is a human social construct. You can hold things. So if you mean they're in your possession, as in physical possession, but they're not actually your possession, naturally speaking. This is a human construct. We've made it up. Like, oh, anybody, this is my car, this is my house, this is my family, this is my... These ideas don't exist in the world of nature. These are human constructs. Bullying is a human construct. What you could say, it's a social construct. What you could say is exerting control over your environment does exist in nature. But anyway, my whole point of mentioning this was, I mentioned this, so some woman kind of followed up. Later on, she deleted her comment. She said like, well, women want to be with many men as well. And I said, look, that because she was a Muslim, so I began by saying that, look, well, I'm simply stating the science. And since this is a discourse to do with 21st century, faith has no part of this discourse. Therefore, I said, by all means, if you're a consenting adult, right? I said it's a free world. You can be with as many partners as you like. I said, be they men or women, you can be with 10 or hundreds of them. And I said, and if you want, all at the same time. It doesn't, it's a free world. You're just asking for a... So do whatever you want. If you want to, you're saying because you're obviously not debating this from a religious perspective, and you're not debating this from a scientific perspective. So you're just saying, well, so I said, well, do whatever you want. I said, if you want to be with 10 men or 100 men, be with whoever you want. Like, it's a free world the last time I checked. So, so you see, and that there, by the way, let me show you let me just kind of go off on one. That there is the core, the kind of litmus test of the difference between the male and the female species. All men would would dive head deep into that scenario with 100 of the other, all straight men, I give the caveat of homosexuals aside, straight men would dive head deep into an opportunity with hundreds of the opposite, whereas women, the female species, most likely wouldn't. Right, but anyway, the reason I was mentioning this story, not so as not to offend people, was some person came on there and he was, because the question was about Shia, and he said, oh, is this what you tell your mother as well, your mum as well? he said, is this what you tell your mum? And I can see that you're a Muawiyah supporter, Muawiyan, and so is this what you learned from Yazid? I thought, well, is this what I tell my mum? Thought, I hope not. That would be rather awkward, wouldn't it, to tell my mother that? It'd be an awkward conversation to have, one must say. I think he underestimated my capacity for humour. But my response is that, you see, my mum wouldn't ask such stupid and dumb questions. So, you ask stupid questions, you get stupid responses. So, I mean, what do you expect? So that was my point of saying, but this person came out to say this on a public non-Muslim forum to me, discussing just because he said you support Muawiyah, and so you must have picked this up from Yazid. I thought, whoa, ease up, bro. Stop projecting all this hatred onto me. I don't, I haven't picked up anything from Yazid. It's okay, relax. So that's my point. I do believe, look, we should work together in terms of Sunni and Shia. But I don't think we should discuss history. I think we should just put that aside. Don't discuss history. And just move forward on the overlap, which is the huge hundreds and hundreds of things that we do agree on. Cool, people. Let's move on to the next question. Those of you just tuning in, if you click like, share the live feed, get it out there, people. Spread the fitan, spread the fasad. No, I'm just joking. It's not fitan and fasad, people. This is, I'm trying to spread some guidance here, yaar. I'm trying to, let me, Mufti G. Sid Khan. Alright, judo expert is in the house, people. Do the dead hear us in the grave when we visit them? Alaykum assalam. Those of you just tuning in, click live, like and share the live feed. Right, looks like I'm out of the... Do the dead hear us? This issue has had a huge ikhtilaf from the time of the Salaf. So from the time of, if not the Sahaba, definitely their students, the Tabi'een, coming right through. People have always... they have always... Sorry, I'm just reading some of the questions. I only have like this much of a... where Zira, you can post your questions. There is no specific topic per se. Now, that's after you've liked and shared. That's the cost. That's the zakat you have to pay. Right, so you can like and share the live feed. Can you hug a non-mahram girl but not in a seductive way? Imran, natty. Come here, people. This is a non-seductive hug. What is a seductive hug like? Is it like... Are you like kind of like winking away and then saying, this is a non-seductive hug. You got that? This is non-seductive. Right, so anyway, coming back to that topic, people. Coming back to that topic. Of can the dead hear us? So there's been immense ikhtilaf from the time of the Sahaba, coming down. So there's evidences in the Quran and Sunnah which can be interpreted on either side. So for example, there's a hadith that the Prophet said, oh, you do not bury the dead except إِنَّهُ لَيَسْمَعُ قَرْعَ نِعَالِكُم. He hears the footsteps, like the sound of your footsteps as you walk away and things like this. Now, then there's the hadith in Bukhari that the Prophet is addressing the dead saying, هَلْ وَجَدْتُم مَا وَعَدَكُمْ رَبُّكُمْ حَقًّا. Have you found what your Lord promised you to be true? Now, but then there's verses of the Quran, وَمَا أَنْتَ بِمُسْمِعٍ مَّن فِي الْقُبُورِ. You are not one that can make those in the grave hear. So I think there's a difference. My personal understanding is that, look, they're in a different paradigm. Okay, people that have died are in a different paradigm. I think it's natural for people to talk to people, even if they're not there. That is still kind of natural for human beings. So, sometimes, I suppose if you said, like I could be looking at a photograph. This is not a photograph, but I could be looking at a photograph and just talking people talk to themselves too. I mean, so people, when they go to graves, they can talk to people in the graves, like whether they are actually hearing them or not. In my personal understanding, I don't think they are. I think they're in a different realm altogether once a person has passed from this world. But many people, there is a split. In my understanding, I would have assumed both are valid from the text, both interpretations of it. Okay. Try talking slowly, bro. I want to understand you. Alright. I will talk more slowly. Okay. Más despacio. Right, so the dead can hear the taslim of the people when we do ziyarat al-qubur. Wazir al-Wazir. What a name, Wazir al-Wazir. Right, okay. Sid correcting me is jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu, not judo. Right, so yes, that's the take, the Wazir al-Wazir, that's the take of people who believe that the dead can hear. They say that the salam when you go to a grave is for them. So you say, Assalamu alaikum, ya ahl al-qubur. Oh, people of the graveyard, Assalamu alaikum. To those who don't believe in that, they say this is simply a ritual. Like in the Quran, it mentions that فَسَلِّمُوا عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِكُمْ, that you that you say salam even if you enter your own homes and nobody's there. You just say salam. When you go inside your house, say assalamu alaikum. It's just it's a ritual, it's a nice way. So it doesn't mean the house is listening to you. It would be rather strange if all of a sudden the house said, wa alaikum assalam. That would bring Halloween. That would put a whole new face on Halloween. Right, so let's get Canary Islands. Alright, wassama, ahlan wa sahlan. What is the highest spiritual state one can attain? Fareed the Sheikh. I don't know. I mean, what the highest... Obviously, I'm not the best person to be asking about spirituality. But I think spirituality... I think it's... My personal understanding is it's not as the way people understand it. Like, people understand spirituality to mean this kind of like apparent piety. Like, we're like very... And there's like, I don't know, 240 volt or, you know, bulb shining off their face in terms of nur. So all this nur. I don't think that's spirituality in my understanding. I think spirituality is a connection that you have that is special to you. What's my religion? My religion is Islam. Fantale Hawas. Shukran for asking. Thank you. Muchas gracias. All right, for the question. Now, the Chepe from Narcos. Chepe was a cool character in it. Right, so let me stick to answering this. So spirituality, in my understanding, people have different, like you could be somebody that is, for example, many people think you have to be into dhikr, into praying nafal, into fasting all the time voluntarily to have spirituality. I think spirituality is a connection which may be done through those measures. It may be done through other measures. Like maybe for some people it's about learning. Like when Imam Malik was asked, Sheikh Abdul Awwal is in the house, people all the way from London. So when... Right, so when people... when Imam Malik was asked about, you know, you don't fast much apart from the obligatory fast, you don't pray nafal, you know, and he said to the person that, look, you do what you do, all your nafal and things, and I teach and I learn, and both of us, wakilana ala khair, and both of us are upon goodness. And I think reading, learning, even normal learning, somebody could be learning science, they could be learning about, I don't know, anything. They have that connection, this kind of sincerity. This does bring about a sense of spirituality, in my understanding. People do things like meditate. There's spiritual people in all kinds of religions. You know, we can't say they're not necessarily spiritual. They are spiritual. So I think to how... The understanding that people have, I disagree with. They have this understanding that spirituality is only this, like Muslims are only spiritual when they're doing dhikr and fasting and doing these things. And other than that, they're not very spiritual people. My understanding is it's all about a connection and it's subjective. It's not something you can measure about people. It's what they have. Okay. Imran is asking, can we hug these people? Come on, what? Yay or nay, shall we help a brother out here? Shall we... Imran is like standing there saying, yes or no, can I, can't I, come on, help me. Right. Imran, I'm afraid from an Islamic perspective, we can't help you out. But just, you know, I suppose just being people, if we were there, we could have given you a little... a nudge, and you could have... No, don't quote that. Do not quote that. Okay, that is quoting out of context. Right, so now so the thing is, no, Islamically that's not it's not going to be sanctioned by religion. These kind of things, religion doesn't sanction them, but I'm sure I understand what you're saying. It's not, in many cultures, these things do happen. People have like a friendly hug and stuff like this. It's not, you know, the kind of end of the world or anything like in that sense. And it's equivalent in some cultures to doing things like shaking hands. In some cultures. Obviously, in some cultures, it's totally not. But in some, they are like that. I know in some Arab cultures, many Arab cultures, they will kind of kiss. Not like that. They will kind of kiss on the cheeks, or just like kind of a peck in Spain and things like this, and maybe parts of Italy and stuff like that. So it is cultural in some parts of the world. But obviously religion has to have certain demarcated kind of lines. It's just the way it is. Okay. Do you read them books, or are they just for show? These are just for show. Right. Why you not wear stud? Stud? What do you mean by stud? Like an earring? I would love to wear an earring. In my younger days, I wore one for a little while until my ear got all messed up. I had to take it off. Right, so he wears it because he likes it and likes and he likes to score points with the cool kids on the block. Cool kids on the block. Let's take another question. What's with the razor blade, bro? What's with the razor blade, bro? This is to show that I cut through all the nonsense. Straight to the point, like Occam's razor. If you haven't heard of Occam's razor, check it out, people. Occam's razor. Right, let me go through some of your questions. Whoa. Look at that. Oh, sorry. It's really... When you have to hear your own voice, it's as shocking as... Right, let me go back onto... I'm going to... Because I've got questions here. Let me kind of fluctuate between them. Are there any diseases mentioned in the Quran? There ain't no diseases per se like that Allah mentions in the Quran. He speaks of tribulation, suffering, things like this in the Quran. But it's not like Allah doesn't mention, for example, cancer or things like this in the Quran. That doesn't happen like that, okay? But Allah does mention that, look, when people suffer and they are patient, that there's rewards for them and stuff like this. So there's a general positive message within the Quran about people who may be afflicted, and that their kind of afflictions do earn them rewards for their patience. Okay. Right, now, can you stop picking on the flaws and focus on the positive? Shukran Uthman Garewal. Is dream interpretation something that can be learned purely through study, or is there a spiritual right, now that's an interesting one. Gerardo Gabriel is bored. No hay problema, Gerardo. Right, so you can obviously if you're bored, adios. Right, now right, look at that. I forgot the question now. Let's move on to another question. You're misguided, bro. Rahim Chow Ali. Right, okay. There you go. It's always covered up. Shukran, people. Right, let's take another question. There's a follow-up question there. So people who get cancer, are they going to heaven? It doesn't say things like that in the Quran. It does say there is a hadith that anybody who has an illness and dies from that illness is a shaheed. Okay. Twin study mentioned. What are your thoughts about twin being LGBTQ? Ustada Tahira, that's a good question. I'll come to that in just a moment. Right, so there is a hadith that anybody who dies, for example, in a tragedy, in an accident, out of disease, a woman during birth, a person drowning, protecting his wealth, property, anything like this, that person dies a martyr. There is that understanding in Islam, that person dies a martyr and they will be raised amongst the martyrs in the afterlife. That's what the hadith teaches. Okay. What's that hadith number you just mentioned? Hadith don't have a number like that. They are in books. and then within books they have various numbering, and different editions can have slight variations in their numbers, but they don't work like that. You don't have like it's not like the Quran and verses like what's that number. It's more to do with what book is that in. Okay, right. Qibla direction for North Africa and North America. Right, the Qibla is you point towards Mecca. Okay, now there is huge leeway between there is leeway in your kind of variation, your kind of margin for error, if you like, or your margin of error has some leeway. Now, according to some people, in modern terms, you could say to some people like a 45-degree kind of angle variation is fine. According to like the Maliki school, you could even have like a total 90-degree variation, like completely off, but you're still, as long as you're trying, it's fine. Okay, really the Qibla is only a point of direction, of unified direction to turn to. Otherwise, as Allah says in the Quran, لِلَّهِ الْمَشْرِقُ وَالْمَغْرِبُ, that Allah, to Him is everything, the east and the west. أَيْنَمَا تُوَلُّوا فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ, wheresoever you shall turn, you will find Allah. But we just have this as a direction, a unified direction to turn to. How would you respond logically to an atheist who says, if God created everything, who created God? Right. Muhammad Alam, yep, you've asked your question. Let me just get the... Gerardo's asked, what do you say about black magic? Just going off on a just on a tangent here. I am releasing my video tomorrow on the occasion of Halloween. Right, about... it's the final part of the Debunking Myths series. It was co-delivered with Sheikh Akram Nadwi, a senior scholar of the UK, and it is on how magic has no reality within Islam. So look out for that. Do like it and share it. Watch it, inshallah. That's tomorrow. Those of you just tuning in, if you can click like, click share, share the live feed. Get it out there, people. Get it out there. Right, now, how do we respond to an atheist who says, if God created everything, who created God? The truth is, look, you can't, there's some things you just can't, you don't have an overwhelming response to. We have to accept that. Okay, we have to accept that in Islam too, in faith, all faith, we don't have the answers for everything. So we have to, because sometimes what is also an issue is this arrogant, it's perceived as arrogant, this attitude that we know it all. And we don't. And people will say that, look, if God created everything, then who created God? And that's true. Look, this is simply to us a rational understanding that, look, the world seems to have some meaning to it for us, and therefore there must be a creator. That makes logical sense to us. Now, in relation to what do you say when they say God creates something greater than, right? So somebody could say, well, if God created this universe, who created God? Now, a normal response would be, well, God wouldn't be part of this creation kind of this creation discourse, that things are created therefore require a creator. He wouldn't be part of that discourse. Just as if I, for example, if I look at this mobile phone and I see it runs by by charge or by batteries, and then I assume that the person who made it must also run by batteries. That's an analogy which demonstrates that, well, okay, some systems operate within certain parameters. So creation has a creator. That's a system. Now, we are assuming that God is beyond that system. He's transcendent. But that doesn't stop the question from being still a valid question. It is still a valid question that people who do not believe will ask, that if God created everything, then who created God? And the truth is, well, there isn't really a cohesive, like a a conclusive response to that, because what if you said, well, for example, then who created God? Well, let's just say X created God. Then the natural follow-on question would be, well, who created X then? And so this is what in philosophy they call infinite regress. Okay, it just goes on forever. And this is why in the past philosophers, Aristotle and pre-Aristotelian thought, people felt that, look, infinite regress was nonsensical. You can't kind of keep going back and back and back because it has no beginning. Currently, science does seem to show that there was a beginning with the Big Bang, although there are some theories that maybe this universe came out of another universe. There is that theory as well in science. But I think, look, it's okay sometimes not to have all the answers. This is a matter of faith. So if somebody says to you, look, why do you believe in God? You say, well, look, to me, this seems to make more sense than not believing in a creator. It doesn't mean it has to make 100%. It doesn't mean that there is no valid question left ever to question faith. Of course there is. There are hundreds of valid questions that could still be like spanners in the works for faith. But it's like a balance, the balance of probability. That's what it is. This is not beyond reasonable or beyond any doubt. That's not what faith is. It's not beyond any doubt. This is simply a balance of probabilities for people. What preponderates, okay, the preponderance of one over the other. So you're feeling that, look, to me, I feel like there is something greater than me out there. And I feel that there is meaning. And this tips the balance for me, and therefore I believe. Right, so Arabia Bradford just said, this guy is lost. Muchas gracias. And with that, you just got blocked. Have I ever been visited Faizan Medina, Karachi? Yes, Abdul Wahab, I have. I visited. I've got my photographs on Facebook when I visited. I have a Muslim girlfriend. Why is it the Muslim people cannot marry out of their religion? Jesus, alright, Jesus himself. Right, bienvenidos, Jesus. I think, look, within faith, there are sometimes some guidelines. I've given a more greater discussion on this in my previous Q&A. I have mentioned that I think this was done with certain strategies or goals in mind, that religion, that Islam came up with certain rulings. In essence, I think all marriage was not in essence based to do with religion, but Islam introduced those rules to kind of create and facilitate for a society that can flourish, and flourish in a way that would allow the message of Islam to prosper. So that's why I think it came up with these kind of understandings. Are you a Brilvi for the 6th time? No, I'm not a Brilvi. I'm not a Deobandi. I'm not a Salafi. Although I have been to all of those madrasas and studied in each and all of them. Yes. Okay, right, there was a question. Where is the distinction between Hayya fid Deen and assertiveness? I'm not sure. I don't understand that question, Junior. Is iddah... Right, let me just come... Iddah question. Imran, I'll come to your iddah question. If two people don't want to be with each other. Allah. Look at that, Imran. That went really quickly from can I hug them to I don't even want to be with... Bas. Bahut ho gaya. Things escalated quickly, didn't they? That's... take the necklace off first. Hi, Mahdi ji. Kya? Take the necklace off first. And then what should I take off second? Why you put necklace? Right. I put necklace just because I like put necklace. I hope that make sense. Right, okay, let's get back to these questions. Right, Ustada Tahira had asked a question, and I think that was an interesting one. It tied into my discussion earlier on Steven Pinker's whole the natural state, the state of nature. And research has shown that identical twins who were separated since birth, there have been certain cases where some of them have grown up to become homosexual, for example, and the other and the other twin hasn't, whether it's a he or a she. And that demonstrates once again that, you know, is this, I suppose that could be an argument, is this genetic? Is homosexuality genetic? I think there's a huge discussion in science. Nothing conclusive, in my understanding, has shown that homosexuality is genetic. I've come across the arguments that demonstrate that they show certain variables which seem to suggest a stronger proclivity or inclination towards homosexuality if due to some genetic things. But then there are a lot of confounding variables as well. So it's not conclusive in any way, in any scientific manner, as far as I'm aware. Okay, it's not. So, and I don't personally buy into the thing that homosexuality is genetic. I'm not of that opinion, although I feel with a minority of cases, it could be as a result of, so that it could have some strong genetic basis. So some people may find like a hormonal imbalance. Therefore, as men, for example, they may lack testosterone, or as a woman lacking estrogen and things like this, and it's having a certain so there could be, and you find sometimes androgynous kind of women and vice versa and things like this. So I think there could be some genetic reasoning for some cases, which are a minority in my understanding. I feel, this is my opinion, people don't need to take it, that this is more just the way people kind of end up going. I do agree. I do think there is more sense resonating from certain psychological and psychoanalytic findings that suggest that most creatures, right, most mammals, most creatures, including human beings, are bisexual. And I think that may have some reality to it in my understanding. I think that the way it explains it is that if bisexuality is a spectrum, mammals and creatures, including human beings, will be somewhere on this spectrum. So they will be, for example, they may be very heavily heterosexual, but they're still on this spectrum somewhere. And I think that shows a lot of, there's a lot of data that supports that in my understanding. So I think what creatures are more concerned with is the act as opposed to the gender. But it's what triggers and excites the act in the person. And so I think it's more about the actual sex itself as opposed to the gender per se. But people will be triggered by, let's say, three things which come to mind. Like, let's say, femininity or masculinity. And then there will be anatomy. And then there will be social kind of constructions. So sometimes I think maybe all of these don't need to be present to excite the other person. So a person could come across, for example, some people could be men, or they could be males, if I say that better, but they could be incredibly feminine. And therefore, right? And therefore, they could tie into some of the social constructions, like let's say if they, I don't know, like within society they dressed like women or did certain things, and that might be enough to excite the other, let's say, males. That might trigger off the responses. So all three may not be necessary to trigger that kind of stimulation. Now, the same kind of thing, like having kind of, like I said, doing all this, or you know how how women walk and the whole thing. And as an example, I'm just saying, like that's femininity or masculinity, and it's found in things. But anyway, right. So I hope that answers some of that. I think it is. I think one of the greatest problems of this age is that people are almost forced into believing that if they are attracted to one, let's say the same, let's say they are bisexual, they are attracted, let's say it's a man and he finds attraction to men, he is forced to believe that, oh, I am now homosexual. So we have what we call a light switch effect. You are either on or off. And I think that forces a lot of people to kind of superimpose an identity upon themselves. And this is something that didn't exist in the past. So coming back to discourse analysis, today we have this whole discourse of homosexuals or LGBTQ, whatever, this whole thing. And it's causing also a lot of confusion as well. That said, I do believe that people as human beings speaking have their own rights, and it is unacceptable to discriminate based on their, like, you don't need to kind of agree with them, but to hate on them for being homosexual is wrong from an Islamic perspective. Right, okay, now let's move on to another question. Do you have to do wudu when you put on the socks? No, you don't have to do wudu when you put your socks on. Discourse analysis. All right, let's take some other questions, people. Oh, right, Imran had asked a question. Sorry to pick on Imran. Right, those of you just tuning in, if you click like, share the live feed, get it out there, people. Get it out there. Yeah, let the fitan, fasad, kufr, ilhad. That's becoming a motto now. Right, so look at that. Refills, people, refills. Right, so now get this out there, people, get this out there. Right, there was a question about iddah. Right, okay, 1 point, Ahmad Ali, do I think Allah created the universe and never looked back? No, I do not think that. Okay, I think Allah did not disown the universe, although I do believe that He set science's laws of nature in place to act out. Okay, I hope that helps. Right, Osama, shukran. Right, drinking Coke and energy again, hell yeah. And after this, I'm off to the gym, people, the gym. Right, so, right now, and I also hear the steam room's back in function. That's what I'm talking about, people. Those of you that do not visit a steam room, you need to visit a steam room, people. You need to de-stress. You need to. You know, I was watching some of that Ricky, the stand-up comedy, that Ricky Gervais. I gotta say, so funny. And he had this one where he's dissing fat people. And it was so hilarious. But I mean, I suppose we shouldn't diss people like that. But I gotta say, he is really funny. Anyway, Abu Muawiyah is in the house. People, Abu Muawiyah is in the house. Abu Muawiyah, who has as his background poem, Hasil Zindagi Keh Dun Sahib, Bashar Ahle Wafa Nahi Hota. Abu Muawiyah, you're killing it with that poem. You're killing it, right? So that is that's his poem on his wall, by the way. So that simply means that, shall I give you the summary? Shall I sum up life for you? That man is incapable of loyalty. Right, so coming back to this iddah question. I get asked this a lot by people that look, so a divorce has taken place. And first of all, let me reiterate this. I was asked again today by somebody that his wife wanted a divorce and he wasn't really agreeing. You have to understand something, that Islam, it is man or woman. It is their fundamental human and God-given right to be in a relationship with whom they want, or be out of a relationship whom they don't want to be with. Okay? So that is their right. If somebody does not want to be in a relationship, you have no right to impose a relationship on them against their will, be they a man or a woman. Just to clarify that, okay? And if it's a man, well, and if it's a woman, she too will be entitled to a talaq. If she, I did tell the husband this as well, that look, if she, all she has to simply do is apply with an Islamic council, and she will be granted the talaq. And you can't, because look, and I'm all for encouraging reconciliation, but I'm just saying you can't, that has to be a two-way street. Okay, it has to be a two-way street. You can't have this kind of like, you will be in this relationship as long as I want you to be in this relationship. No, that doesn't work. Okay. So right now, and then another question I get by a lot of people is, okay, we've had a divorce. Now, what is the purpose of an iddah? Because the woman will say, look, I'm not pregnant. Okay, which, okay, is definitely one of the wisdoms behind an iddah. Let me first of all explain what an iddah is. An iddah is the waiting period after a divorce has taken place. It is in essence a Naila Guja, what does Satan drink? Well, Naila G, I hope it's not this. Right, so the thing is that, right, Abu Trim Wahid, behave. I expected more intelligence from you with the name Wahid, right? Rather, anyway, things, it's a reverse camera, people, so just chill yourselves, chill yourselves. Right, now, anyway, so the iddah is in essence 3 menstrual cycles that the woman waits. By the once she hits the third menstrual cycle, she can now perform a new nikah. Okay, there are no prohibitions. The only prohibition, there is a difference of opinion, the understanding I go with is, and many of the ulama go with, the only prohibition during an iddah is sorry, I'm just reading some of these comments, is nikah, that the only thing she can't do is get married. Everything else is permissible. She can go out, she can do shopping, she can work, she can chill, she can do whatever she wants. The only thing is nikah. She cannot undertake a new marriage until the 3 menstrual cycles have passed. Now, what is the wisdom behind this? One of the wisdoms is obviously pregnancy. That makes sense. But it is more than just that as well. You see, because you have to remember, Islam has come for the whole world. It hasn't just come for your locality. Right? It hasn't just come for, you or me, or it's come for everybody. And we have to understand that it's come for human beings who have a human being nature. Sometimes, and that has to take into consideration, the good parts and the bad parts of their nature. Okay, it has to take all of this into consideration. Fatima has asked, what if her 3 menstrual cycles are not regular? Then she can just wait 3 months. Okay, some of the ulama say 3 months is fine. Right, now, my point of saying this is, you see, a lot of the times, and remember, taking into consideration humanity, not just us within this part of the UK or that part of Europe or that part of the US, the whole world. When a divorce has taken place, quite often emotions are running high. There's a lot of kind of sometimes hostility, tension, adversity. if a woman goes immediately and does a nikah, not that there's anything wrong with that, but quite often in huge parts of the world, it will lead to, it may lead to kind of very, very horrible consequences, in the sense that people will start, you know, like people may say, oh, is this why she was playing up? You know, she really had this guy lined up and she had all this, and I bet she must have been having an affair. I bet this must have been happening. I bet that must have been happening. Honor is brought into question. Oh my God, she's been dishonoring this family. She's been doing this. She's been doing that. And you have to remember the whole world isn't, so humanity isn't always very calm and rational, and it isn't really very amicable. So you have to take this into consideration. If Islam was to say, look, yeah, as soon as you do this, just do another nikah, it placed like a safeguarding measure, a buffer zone, which isn't that long. It could be, you know, just over a month and a half to 3 months, anything between that. But it's enough time for people to, at least to some extent, move on. Right? It's slightly to move on, to not kind of, because otherwise, you know, if a person divorces, and like I said, look, people in this part of the world might be a bit calm, but I'll be honest with you, I deal with a lot of people going through divorces and stuff like this. They're not calm, even in this part of the world. So, but in other parts of the world, it's worse still. You know, where societies are incredibly patriarchal. They may even end up killing people because they may say, oh, she was having an affair, she's dishonored us, she's done this, she's done that, and it leads to bloodshed. So I feel that this was also one of the wisdoms behind having an iddah, which should still, even in modern society, be maintained. And the only prohibition is one of nikah. Everything else is normal. She can carry on. Everybody carries on as normal. Why is there no compulsory 3-month period for the man too, labelled with false accusations? You see, I think, Sayyid, just being realistic and dealing with what we're dealing with in society, men, because in Islam they were allowed to take multiple wives anyway at the same time, it's not usually the cause of a breakdown of a kind of relationship. I mean, sorry, it can be the cause of a breakdown, but it's not a cause of this kind of, it's not seen, and I'm not trying to come at this from a, is this fair or not? I'm just being descriptive. I'm merely describing the scenario. Society doesn't seem to hurl that kind of dishonor on men. It doesn't. Now you may say, well, okay, that's a shame, or that's, you know, but it's just being realistic. That's not like, most likely if a divorce happened, right? If a divorce happened, people usually don't say, like if the man, let's say he remarried next month, whatever, that obviously may lead to bickering and things like this, but it doesn't usually lead to bloodshed. Okay. Whereas in the other scenario, it does. In many parts of the world. Now, the other thing I want to add here as well is, what if the woman was pregnant? Like, let's say a woman goes off and now she remarries. But then she finds out as soon as she's about to get married to somebody that she's pregnant with the other guy. Now, the other guy would say, well, I don't believe that it's my child. Now, I know you could say, well, there's DNA. But remember, throughout the vast, you know, majority of the globe, DNA is not accessible to people. You know, you can't just run a DNA analysis in some remote village in Pakistan. It's not going to happen like that. So I think there's many kind of angles to this iddah thing. One is the pregnancy. The other is it also at the same time protected the women by, you know, allowing kind of this tension to be diffused. So they are safe from any kind of patriarchal backlash, if you like. Is there a, generally there isn't, Fatima, a difference of opinion, even if the divorce is issued afterwards. But I mean, there is an opinion that the woman could just sit one menstrual cycle and that's fine. Okay, that's fine. I mean, these things, like I said, once again, are not so much. The only prohibition is one of nikah. Right, okay, next question. Do I think Hinduism has divine origins? Has Jamrak. No one talk bad about guy, why only women? Bushra, no idea what you just said, must be another language. What is the thing, what's your view on istikhara? Istikhara I've answered before on several kind of on several kind of videos, so you can check that out, several Q&As. Coming back to this question on Hinduism, I do believe that Hinduism, in my understanding, also had, most likely, that's my belief, I could be wrong, I do feel that in essence, it was a divinely inspired religion, Allahu A'lam, but I feel most of these religions most likely would have been, people like, if you look in the the Rig Vedas, people which are the classical, thousands of years, they predate the Upanishads and the kind of the Bhagavad Gita. Now, in the Rig Vedas, you will see people, for example, here's an example, like Krishna is spoken of as a scholar and a wise, learned person. He's not spoken of as a god. Now, in later kind of writings, he's spoken of as a god. So you can see there is a distinction. Plus, I think, in essence, that maybe this is once again my take. I could be wrong on this. I think maybe religions were revealed with different kind of takes, different angles on reality based on their circumstances. Right, so let me kind of expand on that. So Hinduism is a very kind of mystical religion. It's based on a kind of mysticism to it, as is Buddhism, whereas Christianity, Judaism and Islam are based on a kind of a reason-based approach. So they're considered rational faiths. Okay, they're not considered mystical faiths. Right now, Karandeep is asking, what am I talking about? Right now, I'm just discussing, I've been asked, do I feel that Hinduism had divine origins? As a Muslim scholar, do I feel that? Yes, I do feel that. I do believe that Hinduism, in essence, may have been, obviously I can't say with certainty, but may have been a divinely inspired religion coming at it from a different perspective. So this whole thing about addressing things like, I know it speaks about things like Brahma, the whole kind of, I suppose, Atma, the great Atma, if you like, the soul of everything, being everywhere and kind of permeating existence, and maybe it was talking about things from a different perspective, which with different times, it didn't, like, people maybe didn't need, other societies, that wasn't their way. So for the Middle East, maybe things had to be more rational based. And that's why these religions like Judaism, Christianity and Islam centered more on reason as opposed to on mysticism. But anyway, that's my understanding. It is a shame really today to see the kind of tragedy that is happening in India today. The kind of U-turn that some people are taking in India towards a religious fundamentalism, and this kind of whole, this with the banning of beef and the renaming of so many things, and turning this kind of like Hinduization, if you like, to really change things back to become more Hindu, this kind of Hindutva legacy that we're seeing. It's a shame, really. I came across a beautiful lecture by a Hindu professor speaking on history. I'll try and share it, inshallah, on Facebook. And on there, he gives examples of people like when throughout history, Tipu Sultan fighting against like Hindu kind of rivals, but how this is portrayed by some people as Hindu versus Muslim. But he says, but is it? He says, look at this. Who were his chief commanders? Hindus. Who were their chief commanders? Muslims. He speaks about when one of the kind of Maharajas is leaving the province of Tipu Sultan. He destroys a mandir. He destroys a temple. Tipu Sultan pays to have that temple rebuilt. The same discussion he highlights with people like Aurangzeb, who's portrayed today by some hardline people as like a Muslim fanatic, but yet he shows that, look, some of his key representatives, Aurangzeb's, his key kind of like generals in his army and all this were all Hindus. They weren't actually Muslim. I mean, they were Muslims too, and the people he was fighting against, and he says that, look, when his fight against, he speaks of people like Shiva Maharaj, and how people like Shiva, who is hailed as like the Hindu kind of hero of the past, how he was some of his key people were all Muslims in his army and everything, and how when he sent people to attack, there was a particular attack where he was sending them, he actually says to them that you will come across a mazar of Hazrat Fulan. There's some Hazrat Ji that's buried along the way, and he says that no harm should come onto that, and no harm should come onto this church, and you should he actually gives an offering for this Hazrat Ji's mazar. So all of this shows the kind of tolerance towards religion people had in the past, and it was really political. That's what it was. I'm not sure is somebody trolling? Let me see. I can't find. I can just see people making a reference. I'm just un momento. Okay, I've blocked him. All right. It's nothing quite like a block, is there? Right, I've blocked him now. Otherwise, it is known where Ahl-Lat wal-Azza historically come from. Otherwise, science isn't correct or rational or anything, in fact. Science is something that tries to be as objective as one could possibly be. When you make the argument that men are polygamous by nature, we can both agree that Allah, creator of Adam, would know the natural state of man. Why weren't there multiple Eves created then for him? It's a good question. ¿Qué pasa, amigo? All right, muy bien, muy bien. ¿Y tú, Zahra? Right, so it's a good question. I don't know about Adam alayhi salam per se, and why there weren't multiple women or stuff like this. But the nature of man is polygamous by, scientifically speaking, that's male species throughout mammals and things like this are polygamous, as through religiously speaking as well. Like Islam seems to recognize that and just move on about it. It doesn't make a big deal. It doesn't say you have to be like this, but it just recognizes it is, and that's one way of just, it is what it is, I guess. Imam Mark is in the house, people. Imam Mark, one of the cool Imam stateside people. If you're on social media, do add him and follow him and reach out to him. Common ancestor, been taught Eve was created from the ribs of Adam. Historically later modern humans. I've spoken quite a bit about this in the past, about evolution. I have said that, look, what we know in the Quran is that Allah states that all life has a single source of origin. وَمِنَ الْمَاءِ وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ حَيٍّ, and that from this source, this water, we created all things of life. So humans have a single source of origin. How they diversified, we don't really know. The Quran didn't really go on to give like a biology lesson. The attitude is just go figure it out yourself. That's what it is. And I think science is trying to do that. I'm not, I think up to a simple statement would be that which Jamaluddin al-Afghani made like over 100 years ago. In fact, a contemporary of Darwin, who said that well, bar Adam, we have no problem with evolution. That was back then. So, and how does Adam fit into all of this? I don't know. I'm being honest with you. I just don't know. Okay, but I do believe evolution, in my understanding, to be true. But how did it work out? I just don't know. I don't think science claims it exactly knows it doesn't claim to know everything anyway, but it states that life is definitely connected. All creatures, all life, plants, humans, trees, we're all connected at some stage. And I feel that reflects the verse of the Quran. I feel it also reflects this understanding that I said earlier on about other faiths having this thing about we are all one with nature and we are all connected, and how they may also have, from their own perspective, some divine origins which were for their time, and which the Middle Eastern religions didn't really take that approach and took a more rational approach for their age. Do you speak Urdu? Urdu, ji, bilkul, huzur. Of course I speak Urdu. Right, those of you just tuning in, if you click like, share the live feed, people, get it out there. Whoa, is that the time? Yes, salam. Oh no, sorry. I freaked out almost. I forgot. I forgot. There's an the hour. I haven't put the hour back. Look at that. Ya salam. Can I shed some light on the existence of dinosaurs? I'm going to need one hell of a beam light to shed on dinosaurs. Look, dinosaurs are factual. They existed during the Jurassic and the other eras. It's, you know, they don't contradict or clash with Islam in any understanding of the word. In essence, they say something like about 65 million years ago, they kind of collapsed, and for whatever reason, they died out. Now, I mean, human beings, or not even humans, but like if you want to say hominids, the kind of, and hominids, the kind of, they existed maybe 8 million years ago. So it's not 7 million years ago, and there's different species coming along. So I don't think that's, obviously dinosaurs are ages ago. Okay, how do you think the pyramids were built? I've got no idea how the pyramids were built. There's some interesting theories out there. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. It's very intriguing. Right, let's take another question. I hope, by the way, Ustada, just saying, I hope that answered your question. I don't know what more to add. For how long does one feel sorrow, upset for past sins that not letting do other stuff well? Sayyid Ziyad, what is your view on the moon sighting committee of Batley? I don't know what committee is. Oh, community? Is that what you mean? Community? Right, so, right, anyway, those of you tuning in, if you click like, share the live feed, post your questions, I'll try to get to them. What is the thing about the 12 Imams in Shia belief? Someone disbelieved in the Sahaba. Does this make them a kafir? By rejecting the Sahaba, you don't generally become kafir. No, I don't personally call Shia kafirs and stuff like that. I don't like to call any. I'm not into this takfir game. Okay, I've done a whole video detailed on that before, on this whole Shia response thing, so you can watch that there. It's on YouTube. When does a mean become a goal? Oh, for a moment, Farida Sheikh, I had no idea what you were asking, but okay. You mean Islamically, when does a wasila become the kind of maqsad in itself? I mean, I'm not sure it becomes a goal. I mean, I think a wasila is just a wasila. I'm not sure what do you mean by that. When do things become obligatory which are non-obligatory? How dangerous is taking means for God? Yeah, I think right. I think it could be very dangerous. People could, you see, like I give you an example. People want to identify who a Muslim is. So they've come up with a system on saying, I know men should wear a hat on their head. Now, whoever has a hat on their head, we know he's a Muslim. Fine. Okay, that's a kind of cultural identity formation. Now, so many people do it until that becomes Islam in itself. Now we don't care about anything, but they must just have a hat on their head. And if they don't have a hat on their head, then are they even Muslim? These are examples of things going way out of control. You know, Islam simply being about symbols or about... another way to look at this is... you see, there's two ways. Means are either brought in and made obligatory, or they're taken out and made haram. So where you take them out, you call that saddu dhara'i. Okay. And where you bring it in, I suppose there's a principle called ma la yatimmu illa bihil wajib fahuwa wajib. Now you have to understand, somebody's asking, would you know if Umar Muzaffar... Omar. Anyway. This person is responsible for so much fitna and fasad, I tell you. I'm really, really disappointed in that person's kind of way of doing things and creating this whole drama that he has online and allowing just... But anyway, I've done a post on him. I really don't want to talk about him, but yeah. So coming to this, yeah. So these both things of making something obligatory or making something haram it's slightly arbitrary. These are not agreed upon. Okay, so for example, Imam Shawkani in his Irshad al-Fahul, his book, amazing usul book, kind of goes to town on this whole concept of sadr dhara'i, decimating it, saying that this has, what the hell is all of this nonsense of sadr dhara'i, making things haram that ain't haram, or making something wajib that ain't wajib. But I think at some level it's fine, but it's you've got to really take, I suppose, a case by case scenario. So like people saying, well, look, Allah says in the Quran that فَاغْسِلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ إِلَى الْمَرَافِقِ, that, wash your faces for wudu and your arms to the elbows. Does this too include or exclude the elbow? Here, in these kind of matters, I don't see a big deal in saying, well, okay, you make something wajib because it's not really complete without it. And, these are small kind of matters which there's no real big deal about whether you do or not. The issue is in other things. Like in the past, people said, drinking coffee was haram. Why was drinking coffee haram? They said drinking coffee was... So if you read Hattab, he speaks about this. It is from about 500 years ago. Now, in his commentary upon Khalil, he'll say how ulama said drinking coffee was haram because it provided a get-together culture where people chilled out and hang out. They would kind of hang out and drink coffee and then just chat nonsense. And so they felt this was a medium to greater shar, to greater harm, and therefore declared it haram. So like today, people would say Sheesha must be haram because it provides a get-together for other people. I disagree. I feel that we don't have the authority to do things like that. I think haram should be really, really high, as the way Allah placed it. really high to attain. We seem to have made haram so low. Imam Sufyan al-Thawri, who was a legend from the Salaf and a contemporary to Imam Malik and Abu Hanifa, he said that the deen, Islam, is really creating ease for people and permissibility. Otherwise, haram is something, he said, anybody can say. But the skill and the kind of the dexterity, the kind of the beauty within Islam was demonstrating things to be permissible. Am I saying Sheesha is halal? Of course I'm saying Sheesha. I am saying Sheesha is, I'm saying it's not haram. It may be makruh, it may be kind of, I personally feel that Sheesha is no different to smoking cigarettes. It's discouraged simply based on it's on your health grounds, like it's not unhealthy, it's a waste of money, it's just a bad habit. Based on that, it's discouraged within Islam. It is not haram, because to declare something haram, you need clear-cut, conclusive evidence, and we don't have that. Right, let's take another question. Okay, I had a question here about the Azaan, and this ties in, I suppose, with the Shia question as well. That the Azaan, is it true that saying the words Hayya ala khairil amal was how come you're still drinking Coke? I drink Pepsi Max. Sugar free. Right, so the thing, saying the words, the phrase Hayya ala khairil amal, is this something that was in the Adhan and it was removed by Sayyidina Umar radiallahu an? So it's something the Shia do as part of the Adhan. Now, being objective, Hayya ala khairil amal is not proven from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam through any sound hadith, and it is not in the so it's not in any of the major books of hadith like Bukhari, Muslim, Tirmidhi, Abu Dawud, with a valid chain in any way going back to the Prophet. Okay, neither do we know that this was ever practiced during the Prophet's lifetime with a sahih chain. However, let's be objective. It is proven that some companions did used to say this in their adhan. Okay, they did used to say that Hayya ala khairil amal. So I think it is transmitted by Ibn Umar radiallahu an, and maybe some of the Salaf did used to do this. The popular adhan that we have, that has been taught by companions like Abu Mahdura, by Bilal radiallahu an, Ibn Maktoum, these are the main adhans which are transmitted. In these adhans, it is not there. So we don't believe that this is something that the Prophet introduced and Umar stopped. I don't believe that allegation or accusation to be true. Okay. However, as Imam Shawkani brings this whole discussion in his book Nail al-Awtar, and he brings the Shia sources too, and he demonstrates, it translates Hayya ala khair al-amal. It just translates as hasten, like Hayya ala salah, Hayya ala al-falah, come to salah, come to success, Hayya ala khair al-amal, come to the best of actions. It's a nice translation, but generally in the main structure of adhan we don't have it. It was practiced by some of the Salaf. Let's not freak out. I don't think it's fair to say this is some kind of pure Shia conspiracy, but it was practiced by some of the Salaf, and we know that the adhan had variants, so they have some precedent from the Salaf, although it's not proven from the Prophet as far as we are aware from our sources. Okay, so I hope that answers that. Right, and actions, and what's interesting is when Imam Malik You see, the Medinan Azaan was slightly different to the Kufic Azaan. So we have to understand the Azaan did vary in the time of the Prophet and in the time of his companions. So in Medina and in the Maliki Madhab, the Azaan is only said Allahu Akbar twice, not 4 times. Right, when you start off. Now, when Abu Yusuf, the companion of Abu Hanifa, came to Medina and he saw the Azaan, and he said to Imam Malik, he said, wow. He said, the people of Medina don't even know the Azaan. You know, Abu Yusuf had you got to give it to them though. Some of the Hanafis did have a very kind of like a sarky personality to them. In a kind of witty stroke, sarcastic humor. They did have that to them. And I think that was encouraged by that kind of Iraqi spirit. They had this kind of spirit in Iraq at the time. So Imam Abu Hanifa was incredibly witty and incredibly kind of, he was always somebody, like he would take the mick out of things. He would be very kind of humorous. He would be very, and even people like Sufyan al-Thawri, who's from Iraq too, they say that he would always, enjoy his joke and his laugh, and he would laugh so much sometimes that he'd fall over and he'd be stamping his feet. And as a grown man, this is, it's not like, and it goes back to, there's a saying that Ibn al-Mubarak, he was praying next to Abu Hanifa in Salah, and Ibn al-Mubarak, like in the other madhabs, they do raf al-yadayn. Like in Maliki madhab, there's both positions. So before you go into ruku, every time you come out of ruku, they do raf al-yadayn. And if somebody is looking to learn Salah, I have got a YouTube video on how to perform Salah according to the School of Medina. So feel free to learn and watch from that. But anyway, so he does raf al-yadayn. And so everybody does kind of raf al-yadayn to start their Salah. But they don't do it, the Hanafi madhab doesn't do it during the kind of, during the movements. So Abu Hanifa was praying next to Ibn al-Mubarak, and Ibn al-Mubarak was doing raf al-yadayn. So, so when he finished, Abu Hanifa said to him, he said, "Akhsha annaka satatir." He said, I was getting scared there for a while that you were going to take off. You're going to fly away. But Ibn al-Mubarak said to him, he said, "Illam atir fil ula, fa lan atira fil baqiya," fil bawaqi. He said that if I didn't take off in the first, then why would I take off in the others? But I love the kind of humor that they had. They had this kind of sense of sarcasm and I think that's something, unfortunately, seems to have died out in the Muslim community. Seem to be so miserable, so stern. Ya akhi, you're gonna die. Are mere dushman. If I'm gonna die, why are you trying to kill me today? Aaj to jeene de. It's like, at least let me live today. I mean, unless I'm dying right now. It's like people, they have... What's that poem that... Kya kahun ye dunya walon ko jo aakhri saans par bhi e'taraz karte hain. That's the thing. These people, at least let me enjoy. But people seem to be so serious and they think this is Islamic. It's not Islamic. It's just their personality, that's all. So coming back to this point, so Abu Yusuf said to Imam Malik, the people of Medina don't seem to know the Azaan. Because the Azaan in Medina was slightly different. So what Imam Malik said to him, he said, he was the Don of Medina, I'm telling you, the Don. And he said, Amma adhanu yawmin wa layla fala adri. He said, as to the Azaan of a single day, or a night that maybe the Prophet read somewhere when, they recited somewhere when he was on a journey or something. He said, I don't know about that. He said, but as to this, he said, then the children have taken from their fathers, who have taken from the companions from the Messenger of Allah in this city 5 times a day. Allah, with an unbroken chain, people. That's the school of Medina. That's what I'm talking about. So, let's see what else. You guys can't be serious. Drink with the right hand, bro, and say Bismillah. Well, I'll say Bismillah as I block you. Bismillah, there you go. Blocked. Did Prophet Adam have sexual relationship with someone other than Eve? Abey yaar, I wasn't there. Well, I wasn't there when Adam alayhi salam was on earth. How would I know? I don't know, honestly, I don't know. All I know is that there's Hawa mentioned in literature, which is Eve. Other than that, I don't know. I don't know. But you read books. I read some books. I watch more TV. Stream more Netflix and Amazon than I should. But I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I don't think anybody knows the answer to that. It's not like if it was in a book, I'll just read it to you. But it's not. We don't know, I suppose. Is it appropriate for girls to dress in jeans and t-shirts in the UK? Look, I think from an Islamic perspective, the only thing that is emphasized is modesty. Okay, you can dress modestly. You can dress modestly. Modestly. Look at. Getting some tongue twisters recently. So, you can dress modestly, wearing any types of clothes, whether it's trousers, skirts, shirts, shalwar kameez, thobes, whatever culture that you come from, you can dress modestly according to that culture. That's fine. Right, no one will enter paradise if they have an atom's weight of pride inside them. Well, let's just go with the understanding that Allah is merciful, huh? Can you combine prayers in the Hanafi madhab? No, you can't in the Hanafi madhab. Wear a burqa. Seriously, you should I should wear a burqa. On Halloween, maybe, on Halloween. Yeah, so what is this thing about Halloween, people? Halloween. Why are people freaking out? I don't get it. If you haven't read I've got an article, a note. You can click on it after you finish this tonight's Monday nights, and it's saved in my notes. It's called Halloween or Halaloween. Right, so in there I go into all of this, and I explain that, look, the origins, Samhain, the whole thing, where the Christian intervention came in, what this means today to people. Right. Halloween is not today seen as a religion. I don't care if its origins were in some kind of heathen, pagan origin. Many rulings in Islam are based on pagan rulings. In essence. They came from just like pagan origins. But they just became Islamic because Islam just condoned them. That's all. Look, many of the practices, the things I've raised in the past about blood money and how certain interactions were done, how buying and selling was done in the time of the Prophet, a lot of these practices were just the same practices that the Arabs had from before. It was the same kind of thing. A lot of these things were based, they had some roots in that. And I give a very Nueva York. Alaikum salam, Imran Khan. Is it permissible to sleep naked? Yes, of course it's permissible to sleep like that. In fact, in the Quran, that is the understanding it gives, although the Quran is not saying one way or the other, but there's no impermissibility about things like this. Right, so just coming back to this Halloween thing, that, look, I give the example of things like Aqiqah is a good example. And I've mentioned this before because it has its roots in pagan traditions of Arabia, and Islam just simply just accepted it as a practice because it wasn't going to impact the iman of people. Today, by partaking, I don't even like the word celebrating Halloween because it's not really celebrating, but okay, but if you want to call it celebrating or partaking in Halloween kind of festivities, you don't forget Islam. You don't think, oh no, now my name is sorry, I'm now Abdul Iblis. That never happens, right? When has that happened ever? So those of you just tuning in, if you can click like or share the live feed, get it out there, people. Right, so look, you don't just become kafir. You don't just become like oh my god, I put on a Halloween costume. Oh, I forgot what Allah is now. Oh, I forgot to I now worship the devil. Oh. Chill out, people, because look, if you claim your iman is that ridiculously and absurdly weak that by putting on dressing as a witch or as a, I don't know, as a goblin or as a as Dracula or as whatever, as a clown, right? You think by dressing like that you've now become a kafir, or you're practicing some kind of other god worship. You're deluded. You've got greater problems. That is most befitting for the Game of Thrones dialogue. that is a problem, but the more immediate problem is that you've got serious issues. This is absolutely fine to partake in Halloween. Okay, relax, people. You know, these kind of things, look, if you want to, I'm not saying you have to, if you want to, if kids want to dress up and go to Halloween, go to school in some kind of costumes, there's nothing wrong with this, okay? I'm not saying you have to push this as it's not an Islamic event, it's just a cultural thing. But we need to stop freaking out with, oh my God, this is haram, this is haram, this is haram. Stop this, because you are coming across, you're making Islam appear very separatist. It is not separatist. Islam was for the whole world. It wasn't about just forming a community within other people and living isolated lives. It was about being part of the world. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in a Sahih hadith, he said, shall I tell you the best of the people? He was asked that in a time of so much where everybody's messed up and there's fitna and there's fasad and there's, should a person take his livestock, his sheep and whatever, and head off to the hillsides and live there to seek an honest living? And the Prophet said, that is fihi khair. The person has goodness in him. He intends good. He's got a great intention. And the Prophet said, shall I tell you afdal min dhalik wa ma huwa khayrun minhu? What is better than that? The Prophet said, he who lives with people wa yukhalitun nas wa yasbir ala adhahum, a person who, even if he sees some things that may appear harmful, he is patient, he lives with people, he integrates. Yukhalitun nas, he integrates with people. He is a part of society. Islam was never meant to be a separatist kind of society. We have today turned this into some kind of separatism. That Muslims should only live as Muslim. Haram, shirk, kufr. Don't bring your kufr to me. Don't bring your fasad. Don't bring your kind of shirky Halloween, Valentine's Day, or I don't know, Mother's Day, or I don't know. We don't vote in this system. We don't look. Fireworks. I heard somebody say bonfire night is haram. What on earth is wrong with you guys? Why are you making? You have no right to demonize Islam like this. Look at the irony, demonize Islam. Demonizing Islam. Look, people live where they live. They have cultures. Look all over the world. Look in Pakistan. Pakistan, they have several cultural events. Like in the Punjab, they have the kind of Basanti thing with the kites, and they celebrate these things. And these are not like in Saudi Arabia, they have their cultural national days and things like this. Not everything is based on religion, God damn it. Religion didn't come to micromanage you. It wanted you to just live on, live your life. But today, people like bonfire night is haram. And look, I understand if you have safety concerns. I understand safety concerns. Like you could say, look, I don't want my children going around fireworks. I'm scared for their safety. That's fine. That's your choice. It's your call. They may be young and small and vulnerable, and that's fine. You may say, look, I don't want my children participating in trick or treat or going. That's your call. It's fine. You don't need to. You could say, look, I think Valentine's Day is nothing but a marketing strategy in which they make money. And you're probably very true. I'm very right. It is most likely things like that in which just money is spent and all this kind of stuff. And it's a marketing commercialized tool. That's true. You might say Mother's Day is the same. That's true. You have the right to do that. But stop religionizing it. Stop trying to stamp God onto what you're saying. God isn't saying these things. God doesn't care if you do go to bonfire nights or you don't. God doesn't care about that. It's not haram. God's not telling you to do it. He's not telling you don't do it. There's many things in this world, the vast majority of things are just permissible. They're just mubah. Al-asl fil ashya al-ibaha. Right? So the majority of these things are just mubah. So just leave them that way, people. Leave them that way. Are those real books? Well, I opened one last week. Well, look here. Let me take this one. People, this is a book by... His name is Qabbab. Don't start laughing. He's a great scholar. That's how not to introduce somebody, isn't it? That's how you don't introduce somebody. This is Abu Abbas al-Qabbab, a great legendary scholar from, I believe he was from the Maghrib, the north, but he did travel to Tunis as well and places like that. Abu Abbas al-Qabbab from, I believe, the 8th and 9th century. Yep, that's correct. Yeah, so 8th century of Islam. And this is a commentary he's done on a book called I'lam. Now, I'lam is an amazing book by the Don of Muslim Spain. The pride amongst the pride of the Malikiyah, Qadi Iyad, people Qadi Iyad, who has his famous book known as Shifa, which is a seerah book about the life of not just the life, but life and aspects of the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Why is my book backwards? Because the camera is flipped, just as why you thought I was drinking with my left hand when I wasn't. But so in Qadi Iyad has this, who's the author of the Shifa, which is one of the most famous books there are on the Prophet, on the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the famous poem that you have, that kulluhum hawalud dawa'a lakin, that they all attempted to medicate, but ma ata bishifa illa iyadu, that none came with the cure, with the shifa, except Qadi Iyad. But but he has a book called The Foundations of Islam. This is a commentary upon it in 3 volumes. It was brought into print recently in the last 2-3 years. It was just brought into print. And I have some further good news for you. The I'lam, I have actually already taught and is available online, free. I've taught it you can get the audio lectures, 20 audio lectures I've done on it. It's called, in English, it's translated as the Foundations of Islam. I cover the 5 pillars of Islam in it. That's what he covers, and I just go over them and give explanations. And so I think it's 21 lectures in total, which includes the intro. That's by me. So it's available. I think it's on YouTube. Otherwise, you can search Facebook as well. And that's to get your basic stuff covered. That's what I'm talking about. Right, those of you just tuning in, Alright, so if you just click like and share, get this out there, people. There were some questions. Some people were, are you not the guy that classed masturbation as halal? You know, this is interesting, isn't it? Human nature. Am I not the guy? I think all things have been deemed halal by God, not by me. So if you're looking for God, you found the wrong person, right? Not God here. But I simply explained how the ruling in Islam for masturbation is permitted, and that's what people like Imam Ibn Hazm and other people have argued and shown, that the Salaf used to do that. And he quotes people like Hassan al-Basri and other people who used to command their youth to do things like that, to remain pure of mind, should we say. And people say, no, they want to believe it's haram, and that's fine. You can believe it's haram. It doesn't bother me. And the irony is, some people got so passionately upset about my fatwa, yet I can be so certain that each and every one of them partakes in this somewhat of a glorious act, shall we say. And and instead of being grateful for me to kind of say, well, look, you know, that this is not haram, they were just really flipping and kind of going all weird. But anyway, look, if on rulings like that, nobody's forcing you to do that, you know. So it's relax. I never said it's wajib to do that, conduct that on other people. And the guy goes, oh, is that what... Here's me every day offering a community service. Anyway, people, right, so let's say somebody's asking for men and women. Yep, for everybody, these things are permissible. And that was the understanding of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal as well. And, you know, we need to stop kind of like having this Puritanist understanding of Islam. It's not Puritanist. Islam is not Puritanist, although some people have turned it into a kind of Puritanism. Is Mawlid allowed? Okay, somebody said, why is Mawlid problematic and Halloween fine? You see, I don't say Mawlid is haram. I've never said that, although I have said that Mawlid does fall under the category of an innovation. And I've done a video on innovations in Islam, and generally the Malikiya, Imam Malik considered that, and the Malikiya, not Mawlid, but considered innovations to be discouraged, so makruh. The reason why that is, there is a difference between a cultural event and an event that has been introduced based on religion. So for example, imagine somebody said that let's celebrate birthdays. Now, birthdays are not something that Islam introduced. You're not doing it because of a religious act. You're doing it just because the culture in which you live, people do these things. Now, that's different to somebody saying that, oh, all of a sudden the number 63 is a special year, let's just say, is a special number. And somebody says, why? And you say, well, because the Prophet lived to 63. Now, this is a religious deduction that you're making. Right, so you're kind of like, you're saying that you're looking at religion to provide this new thing. So if somebody came up with, I know, like, let's just say, I don't know, like, let's say the month, like, they chose one of the Islamic months that are not considered from, like, within Islam, there's certain 4, let's say, sacred months. Now, let's say you considered a 5th one. And you said, well, I think this is also sacred. Why? Because this special event happened in Islam. But you're not allowed to really start introducing actions into the religion. So when people say that I want to celebrate the Prophet's birthday, and people say, well, why do you want to celebrate the Prophet's birthday? They say, well, because the Prophet's a great man, we should celebrate his birthday. And by celebrating his birthday, we will be getting rewards. You see, now this is an act of religion that you've introduced. So that's why it becomes controversial. That's not the same as saying, should I celebrate Mother's Day? Because Mother's Day is not a religion. It's not religion that's giving you the day. You are here taking this Mawlid from religion. It's not that, hey, you moved to the UK and people in the UK happen, as non-Muslims, happen to be celebrating the Prophet's birthday. That's not what happens. So that's anyway to answer that. Did Immanuel Kant deliver a blow to religion? I think maybe partially, but I don't know. I think he came at a time where religion in general was beginning to suffer within Europe, as it was. When are you starting your online courses? I need to start them seriously. Now, I need some advice, guys. Those of you that are good with or have used some online teaching platforms, if you can advise me, reach out to me, send me a message. Send it to me on my private page. You see, I've got my public page, then my private one. So if you send it to me on my private one, then I can, you can send it on either, worst case, but it's just sometimes it's easier to respond to on my normal kind of one. But if you send me a message, please, saying that what platforms you've used and what are good. I'm thinking about this Zoom. Let me know what you think on it. Teach the Lugha. Inshallah. Can we wear our Halloween costumes in our masjid? But it's current. A girl reverts to Islam but is current. I don't know what that means, Jan Cummings. A girl reverts to Islam but is current. Considering marijuana is used for medicine, in your opinion, I've already highlighted before that, and I've given more details previously, Khalik, that in my understanding, marijuana is more a matter of legality than it is theology. I don't think, to me, I see very little distinction in marijuana and cigarettes from a religious perspective. I see them, equal. Like, I don't see the harms I see in a cigarette, I see in marijuana. In fact, less harms technically in marijuana. And it actually has more benefits than tobacco. So I see it as an issue of legality. If you were in a part of the world where marijuana or cannabis could be purchased in some parts of America, in some parts of Europe, I think that's fine. It's not haram. It would still be makruh in my understanding, discouraged, because it's not good, it's not helpful to your health overall, but I don't think it's haram. That's my understanding. That's separate from the whole gang culture, by the way. The gang culture is haram, the kind of whole criminal culture, the underworld, the robbing people, dealing drugs, doing all this kind of stuff is haram, and there's a lot of atrocities connected to that. And this is also one of the kind of, I think, the double standards and hypocrisy of the kind of a lot of the modern world governments. You see, they should really kind of legalize things like marijuana, because they will then cut away all that kind of nastiness and all this, and allow just a very kind of regulated brand to be produced for people who want it. And they could charge taxes on it, but why do what they do? I mean, they allow alcohol, and that causes countless deaths per year. So this is why I see it almost as a double standards of the system. Can alcohol-based fragrance be used? Yes, of course it can. May I wish my daughter likes your necklace? Shukran. I also like, what can I say? Ishtail. Right, so did you watch the boxing? I didn't watch the boxing, no. Right, people, let's take some rapid round questions, and we'll wrap up. So, kya kehte ho, huh? Shall we take some shall I speak some sense? There's a poem that La pila de sakiya Paimana paimane ke baad. That keep the drinks coming one after another, huh? A glassful after another. होश की बातें करूंगा होश में आने के बाद. I'll speak on matters of sobriety once I'm sober. Right, so ¿qué quieres? All right, Shak. ¿Qué quiero? Can you speak Punjabi? I can understand Punjabi. Aziz Mia. No, this wasn't Aziz Mia Hasib. This was followed up by the famous line that, what does he say? He says, Waqt sari zindagi mein do hi guzre hain katin. That right throughout life, only two kind of times have been so incredibly difficult. Katin. Ik tere aane se pehle, ik tere jane ke baad. It's a very famous line. I think it was by Amir. Is it not by Amir Menai? But he says that two times have been incredibly difficult. One before your arrival and two right after your departure. These two times. Solid poetry. In poetry, people, lies wisdom. In poetry lies wisdom, as the hadith says. That inna min ash-shi'ri la hikmah. Indeed, in poetry, there is wisdom. So, you should learn poetry. Let's take some rapid round questions and we'll wrap this up. Can this ayah mean to the death outside sleep is not caused by Allah? Takes the soul. Death outside sleep is not caused. There has been a classical debate on things like, generally people understood, see, death, when does death occur? My understanding is that destiny is like many options, okay, and how you choose them, it's like a video game. It's all being designed, but where you get to is up to you. So that's my understanding. Are we allowed to make dua for non-Muslims? Of course we are. Of course we are. And the Prophet made dua for many people, and he made dua for hypocrites and, traitors, and he made dua for people like Abu Jahl, for his iman, for things like this. So, my man is blanking heavily. Imran, what am I blanking about? My man is blanking heavily. Okay, then let's get some of these questions. Why no reply? What's the reply to? Uni loans. Khalid, if you watch my YouTube, I've got a lecture taken out of one of the previous Q&A. It's all about interest. And yes, uni loans are permissible. So if you watch it, it's about an hour long. It's on YouTube. Riba. If you type it in, you'll find it. What is redactal? What is red? What is that? Okay, Bilal, no idea. What do you think of similarities between the Great Flood and the Epic of Gilgamesh? It's interesting, Naveed Khan. Gilgamesh is definitely one of the oldest kind of written, documented things that we have, really, the whole thing about Gilgamesh. And there are some overlaps, and even in the variations of who they consider to be the first species and so on. It's interesting. Are you coming to Copenhagen soon? Yunus, let's see, inshallah. Why not, inshallah. Annul intercourse, annul. to annul the intercourse. Imran's asking, can we annul? Can we declare it void? Let's declare it null and void. It's annulled. I hope, Imran, that's not how you've been understanding things when you've gone somewhere and you said, can I apply for an annulment? And the other person said, yes, of course you can. And then you've gone, I can? Okay, thank you. Right now? Or is that like when you've got a phone call from like the TV company or something? There's been an annulment of your service. you go, Dad, what are they saying? Yaar, hamara annulment karwane wale. I'm gonna get annulled. Yeah, this is like. You're asking between a husband and a wife. Don't annul each other. You're gonna destroy each other like this. Well, anyway, let me get to the question. I've been asked this actually. It's interesting. I've been asked this by somebody else today as well. I don't know what's in the air. Right, so there's two things, yeah. I've been asked about oral sex and I've been asked about anal sex. We're getting to your anul. Imran, we're getting there. So the thing is that according to the school of Medina, when a couple are behind closed doors, it's all a green light zone, okay, in general. So things like oral sex are absolutely permissible. There's nothing haram about them. And that's both ways. The thing about anal sex, generally, most of the ulama generally have prohibited things like that. Some of the Malikiyah have considered it to be just discouraged based on hygiene, but not haram. And some people, and there's some narrations going back to Imam Malik saying it's not haram. Some narrations going back to some companions like Ibn Umar saying it's not haram either. Some of the other ulama of Medina and and other ulama within the Maliki madhab. So Qadi Iyad brings several people. Ibn Rushd brings several people that said that they didn't. They said that it was. They saw it as maybe discouraged, like I said, based on cleanliness and hygiene, and you got to remember their age as well. Not their personal age, but the day and age they were from. So the medieval kind of times and stuff like that. But they didn't declare, many within the Maliki madhab didn't see it necessarily as haram. Okay. And many others did within the Maliki madhab. So there's a split within the Malikiyah. The other madhabs generally saw these things as haram. Right, so the thing is, right, so Steve goes, yeah, age doesn't matter. Natty, you sicko. Right, so the thing is that, look, so that answers that question, okay? I hope that gives some... Now, people are going to flip out and say, what the hell? But look, I'm just stating the facts. Don't shoot the messenger, okay? I'm not saying you have to do this. I'm not saying go out and get it done, right? I'm just saying this is what the books say. This is what the Maliki madhab says. The Maliki madhab is always the most kind of relaxed on certain things, as you can see. Is hip-hop and music haram? I've answered before that no, I don't believe this is haram. I've given much more detail. I know the unibrow. Right, definitely. Right, it's all... I've answered. If you go on YouTube, I've got some Q&A, I think one at York University. So if you type in York and my name, and one at Plymouth University. And in both of them, I deal with music and I give much more time to that response. Right, so I hope that's describe adab for the best of the... How do we describe adab for the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam? I think that the best way to look at it is as it has been said in the Qasida, in the Burda, when he said that leave what the Christians did with Isa, like don't describe the Prophet to be a god, and other than that, praise as much as you can. And you know, so we accept the Messenger of Allah to be a human, And the way he says that وَمُعْظَمَ الْقَوْلِ فِيهِ أَنَّهُ بَشَرٌ, that the best, that the, I suppose the kind of sum of everything we're saying is that he was human, وَأَنَّهُ خَيْرُ خَلْقِ اللَّهِ كُلِّهِمِ, and yet he was the best of Allah's creation. That is our understanding as Muslims towards the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, Abdu, alright, ahlan wa sahlan, tasharraft. Right, so right, people, I think with that we gotta call it a wrap. It's been over 2 hours. Alright, got some controversies in there. There's going to be a lot of, I know a lot of people are going to be kind of flipping, going, what the hell, all this fitna, fasad, Halloween, everything, all these kind of other annulment acts, all these things have been declared permissible in one sitting. God damn, that goes back to what I said in the beginning, people. Al-majlis yajma' al-mutafarriqat, that one gathering context can gather a hell of a lot of things in it. So with that, I'm going to wrap up. What I'll say is, if you are on Facebook, do like my page. If you can like this, obviously like this post and share it. But if you like my actual public page and my private, both pages, like it, follow it. If you have any questions, reach out to me, message me. And I do try to get back to people. If you're on Twitter, add me. If you're on Snapchat, you can add me at Malm2014, MALM 2014. And you can shoot me up your questions. I will try to respond, inshallah. Right, so I've got no... Right, anyway, so I hope that's been of some help. Inshallah, I'll sum up with the words that Subhanallah wa ta'ala amma yasifun. Yep, if you are searching, just search my name on Facebook, Mufti Abu Layth. Okay, now Subhanallah wa ta'ala amma yasifun, that Allah is above and transcendent, above that which they ascribe or describe him to be. وَأَفْضَلُ الصَّلَاةِ وَالسَّلَامِ عَلَى الْقَائِلِ الْمَمْنُونَ, that the best of blessings, salutations upon the blessed messenger who said, الْمَدِينَةُ خَيْرٌ لَهُمْ لَوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ, that indeed Medina is better for them if but only they knew. With that, people, take very good care of yourselves. Remember me in a kind dua. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.